But for those just getting out of a 2-week digital detox, the deal is this. YouTuber MrBeast posted a video in which they paid for the surgery for 1,000 people.
In this video, we're curing 1,000 people's blindness,
while sweetening the deal with bonus prizes like free Teslas and piles of cash.
So I'll see you at the end of the video when we surprise him with a brand new Tesla.
And before we go any further, let me state this plainly and clearly. It is objectively good that these individuals were able to get access to medical treatment that drastically increases their quality of life. Okay, you got it?
Doesn't matter. You're being critical of the system instead of just sitting there and saying, I can sense it. You're giving lib. It's giving lib. I'm assuming he's gonna make systemic critique, which is not acceptable. You better not even fucking think about it, libtard. I'm coming after you. I'll fucking find out. I feel like there's gonna be some systemic critique in this video and I will be very mad.
Great. But the video was accompanied by controversy. Some accused MrBeast of more or less making these individuals dance for their supper because being willing to appear in his video seems like it was maybe a prerequisite for receiving the surgery. One tweet called the video demonic. Others accused him of doing good for online clout. And others went as far as to use this as evidence that MrBeast is exhibiting antichrist tendencies. Now, while that's obviously a bonkers thing to say, Jesus did restore sight to the blind, and the Bible warns that when the Antichrist comes, he'll trick us with Christ-like miracles. But we think that the critiques that focus on MrBeast, aka Jimmy Donaldson, and the morality or immorality of the video are missing the more interesting point. As the most crucial thing, and something pointed out by Hasan Piker in a viral clip, is that the real problem with this video is that it both points out the dystopian state of American healthcare, while also showing the ways in which our current system depends on the charity of the ultra-wealthy. So let's get into this Wisecrack edition on charity for clicks. Is there a better way? But before we get into it, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video. It's Storyblocks. A Storyblog creating lungs. Click the link in the description or go to storyblocks.com/wisecrack to learn more about story. And now, back to the show. Now, this isn't the first time MrBeast has pulled off charitable stunts. In fact, his massive success can be traced back to a series of early videos where he walks around town giving stacks of money to unhoused people, a strategy later used by another Jimmy in his video for God's Plan. As MrBeast has said himself, giving away money on camera makes for the exact type of viral content that will subsequently make him even more money. Some look at stunts like this and see someone instrumentalizing vulnerable people for content. Others see a well-intentioned individual using their platform and wealth to make a positive impact. Now, I'll be totally honest with you guys. The recent video and the discussion around it had me feeling pretty conflicted. Now, on the one hand, I think it's amazing that people were given the opportunity to have life-changing surgery. On the other, it feels dystopian to live in a world where a billionaire YouTuber, famous for stunts like burying himself alive and surviving solitary confinement, is responsible for providing much-needed healthcare to people.
Yeah, literally. Exactly. It's fucking nuts. I feel like I'm losing my mind when I talk about this and people are like, what? There's nothing wrong with that. Shut the fuck up, libtard. It's like, dude, what the fuck? I'm losing my mind. It's like, why is the prank guy on YouTube the one fixing people's sight, dude? Why? This man became famous for doing like Guantanamo style torture to himself by watching the It's Everyday Bro video for like 10 hours. Why is it up to him? It's crazy.
In a totally arbitrary fashion. It feels even more sinister that this act of charity is then made into content that is fed into an algorithm that collects data to further bolster a massive marketing platform to benefit an already successful content creator, while in essence reducing these people to having their vital needs met into mere fodder for our own entertainment. Well, like I said before, we're not here to try to answer if this is all good or bad or right or wrong, especially when we don't really know the conditions behind the production. Like, were people only given the chance to have the surgery if they agreed to appear on camera? Instead, we want to consider why we exist in a system where people with money and platforms are de facto responsible for acts of charity and justice. And further,
you figured you'd show some sympathy after the charity ordeal? What do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm not criticizing MrBeast! Bro, please understand. Also, my fundraiser is not literally fucking, again, curing the blind. And I do think that the government should have not allowed this to happen in Turkey. Like, 90% of my commentary about what's going on in Turkey is literally around how much the government is fucked up. Are you that stupid? Not only am I not criticizing Mr. Beast when I say it should not be up to one fucking... You misunderstood? Dude, you have to have a brain disease of the highest magnitude to like misunderstand what I'm saying. What the fuck? You didn't misunderstand. You didn't misunderstand. You saw other fucking people talk about it and you turned around and you also developed that. You also developed that lack of charitability because you are that easily fucking duped.
What does this tell us about the state of the world? Now, doing philanthropic stunts wasn't invented on YouTube. American philanthropy has been used for hundreds
What's
of
going on
years
with
by
Austin?
the ultra-rich to give back to their communities in various ways. As journalist Anon Gearhardas writes in his book, Winners Take All, the late historian Peter Dobkin Hall, an authority on the American giving tradition, traces it back to the late 17th and early 18th centuries, as the colonial trading commodities magnified differences in wealth and created an increasingly visible population of poor and dependent people for whom the public was expected to take responsibility. In the late 19th and early 20th century, this led to a bunch of super rich dudes creating foundations to divvy up pieces of their massive wealth. As Gearhardas writes, these foundations were, in other words, allowing a small handful of wealthy people like Carnegie and Rockefeller to commit monumental sums of money to the public good, and thus gain a say in the nation's affairs that rivaled that of many public officials. And some liked this seemingly Robin Hood-esque turn from the Gilded Era's robber barons, even if they had gained their wealth through things like monopolistic behavior, or underpaying their workers, or violently shutting down union strikes. Others, like noted New York City cowboy Teddy Roosevelt, disagreed, arguing that no amount of charities in spending such fortunes can compensate in any way for the misconduct in acquiring. Others noted the fundamentally anti-democratic nature of these types of foundations, who got to decide which groups or individuals were worthy of much needed services without the masses having a say. According to Reverend John Hayes Holmes, a Unitarian minister and chairman of the ACLU, my standpoint is the whole thought of democracy. From this standpoint, it seems to me that this foundation, the very character, must be repugnant to the whole idea of a democratic society. But Gearhardas notes that while criticism of the philanthropy industry was common 100 years ago, now it's...
Where are these people coming from? I've seen a lot of these. Will you create a donate action for Ukraine humanitarian crisis? Just asking because I'm a new subscriber. First of all, you're not a subscriber, and I don't know if you did this already or don't support this and have another opinion on this conflict. I have raised money for Ukraine last year, okay? You are not a subscriber. Why the fuck are you guys bots? This is like the third time someone has like talked about Ukraine in the chat today for no fucking reason. So many Just Curious Andys. Did I miss the top of the hour ad break? Fart too often. They always in disbelief, always quiet people, fights people. I've had more Just Curious Andys in the chat than ever before today. It's weird.
It's basically been accepted as a universal societal good. As he notes, when a book slightly critical of modern philanthropy was reviewed by the New York Times, the reviewer said, "Many readers will be ready to throw up their hands in exasperation. So now we're supposed to fret about rich people being too socially conscious? What exactly does this guy want?" This comment mirrors much of the online discourse in the wake of the MrBeast video. And it seems like today, most people, even those who might self-identify as vaguely progressive or liberal, are still followers, whether implicitly or explicitly, of Carnegie's famous gospel of wealth. For him, inequality wasn't to be rejected as universally bad, but is to be accepted as a necessary condition for the very wealth accumulation that would allow Carnegie and his buddies to throw stacks at poor people. To quote Carnegie, "We accept and welcome."
Also, for the record, like what these guys are doing is like entirely different than what even today's wealthy motherfuckers do. They get like additional layers of security from their 501c3s, like what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was doing, like what the Zuckerbergs have done. Okay. And on top of that, like this obviously is still different than what fucking MrBeast is doing.
Welcome, therefore, as conditions to which we must accommodate ourselves, great inequality of environment, the concentration of business, industrial and commercial, in the hands of a few. As Gearhardas puts it, in other words, rich people must be freed to make money however they can. Because when they are, they tend to make a lot of money, which in turn brings progress for all. To put this in more clinical terms, under neoliberalism, which is the dominant economic and political system in the West, the mix of unregulated financial markets and the destruction of the welfare state means that those on the wrong side of the economic tracks must rely on those benefiting from an unequal system to help them reach a humane standard of living. Because the alternative, taxing the rich at high rates and using the income to provide increased social services and government programs, offering things like housing, healthcare, and jobs would be counter to the fundamental logic of neoliberalism. What this means in practice is that massive amounts of wealth are being redistributed into society not by democratic processes in which we choose which elected officials we think would best allocate our collective resources, but by the whims of individual billionaires. But let's get back to MrBeast curing blindness. To restate what we said at the top, it's good and cool that 1,000 blind people were able to get access to a medical procedure that they already should have had access to, especially in a wealthy nation. The question of whether this act of charity should be made into content, well, that's another issue. Because videos like this are made, at least in part, to elicit an emotional reaction from an audience. And as we've covered before, big emotional reactions lead to lots and lots of views and engagement. This then translates into both AdSense money for the channel, but more importantly, it creates analytics that can be used to negotiate brand deals and other business ventures in the future. And while this doesn't negate the material act,
Yeah, I as someone who recognizes all that, I still think it's like significantly better than content whose output deals with like spreading sexist, misogynistic bullshit narratives. That's it. You might not be considering that a high bar to clear, but that is at the heart of why, like, I don't have a gripe with MrBeast. I don't give a fuck.
Of offering people in need a free medical service, it does evoke the long history of rich dudes who have potentially sketchy business practices doing acts.
Especially because there's like a self-funding mechanism for the charity that it features in and of itself.
Of charity to launder their reputation.
That's the lowest bar you're gonna come up with, bro. Come on, dude. I don't like MrBeast is not gonna fund Hamas, okay? Like, no matter how hard you want him to, like, he is not going to be funding Palestinian liberation or anything like that. Like, those are things that are not gonna happen. He's not gonna be funding strikes. Not gonna be funding strike funds. Not gonna be funding labor unions, okay? He's not gonna do those things. Well, one, because he doesn't even know about it, most likely. Now, there are people who do that, fund labor unions and whatnot, and those people are still also called objectively pieces of shit by the broader left anyway. So why the fuck would you even do that? You know?
And while we're not going to get into it here, MrBeast has been accused of treating staff poorly, with allegations including unreasonable demands, low pay, and verbal abuse. It's all covered in a New York Times story. You can check that out if you want. And while some online have defended any criticism surrounding MrBeast with cries of, "He's losing money to do good," and "Call me when you donate millions," the New York Times has noted that the combination was also lucrative. Though Mr. Donaldson gave away increasingly large amounts, from $100,000 to $1 million, he made it all back and more with the advertising that ran alongside the video. He also sold merchandise like socks for $18, water bottles for $27, and t-shirts for $28. In this way, using philanthropic stunts to generate further profits just turns the stunts themselves in part, if not.
Yeah, like, I don't think the thing is, the only thing that I will criticize about the idea is that, like, MrBeast is not like fucking broke. Like, he says it himself. He says that he like doesn't care about money, which I don't disagree with. I don't think he does, but like, no, he's not like he has money. He has a lot of money. He has a lot of money to fund his operations. He has a lot of money to, like, you know, grow his operations. Like, of course he does. Just like every other content creator on this planet also does, right? The difference, of course, is that people think he doesn't have any money. And he just like is literally like you know, going broke every time he makes a video. But I don't think that's true. I don't agree with that. But I also don't have an issue with it. Oh, thanks, bro. I thought MrBeast was poor. No, there are people who think that. No, there are people who literally are like, MrBeast is really wealthy, but like he loses money every time he makes videos. He's only wealthy so he can make more videos. Bro, you guys literally for a group of people who are, you know, probably some of the least charitable people to me. You don't know how fucking deep that well goes. There are motherfuckers out there who say I'm richer than MrBeast, bro. What are you talking about? There are people who are like, dude, MrBeast loses money in every video. What do? You're a fucking piece of shit. Carl, the real money man, is your benefactor. Yep. Yeah, I mean, he talks about it. He says, like, he goes broke every video, but I just not, like, I don't think that that's the case. I can see it being a loss leader for his other brands, but yeah, he's loaded. Yeah, he's fucking so rich.
Fully into another type of marketing. As MrBeast himself told Bloomberg, once you know how to make a video go viral, it's just about how to get as many out as possible. You can practically make unlimited money. But again, under our current economic system, these are the types of people who have the opportunity to use their wealth to benefit others. And even if it also benefits themselves and their businesses, that's always been the case. MrBeast is simply playing by the rules of the game. And this is what makes videos like his especially depressing. To live in a world where people can only access a relatively straightforward cure for blindness by being featured in online content is to live in a world where human dignity and justice are a matter of game show, one in which the rules of the digital economy take precedence over the value of human life. It's not MrBeast's fault that the system exists, and it's not his fault for benefiting from this, but it feels depressing, at least for me, to see the world celebrate videos like this without any ironic distance and without any skepticism about why the we're here in the first place. But what do you guys think? Should we be having bigger discussions about why we need philanthropy in the first place? Or should we accept the world as it is and be thankful that at least some rich dudes use their money to do good? Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much as always to our patrons who use...
I believe that MrBeast is going to create a world conflict. Yeah, he's not. What is this? I get what you're saying, but something kind of rubs you the wrong way. Like, we just gotta hope for the best magnanimous king type scenario. Yeah. If MrBeast cures baldness in 1,000 balding men, I will defend him unconditionally forever.